I knew that this guy was going to come after me. My husband didn't have any idea what I was doing. But I was afraid and I didn't know what to do. I knew I'd gotten myself in over my head. I am Pastor Suzanne Sneath, and I'm part of the staff at this church. There was a time about 20 years ago where I was an addict. I was addicted to methamphetamine and to alcohol. And it got to the point where really that was all that I cared about, was my next high, how was I going to get it, how was I going to pay for it, and everything else was pretty much secondary to that. As I would get cash advances, and I had cash advances to the tune of $75,000. It got to the point where I couldn't keep up with the payments anymore on my credit cards, and so I had to figure out another way to get my drugs. And so I decided I was going to be a dealer. I got the drugs, I got the half ounce, and I gave it to my neighbor to sell for me because I really wasn't a drug dealer. I didn't know enough people to sell it to, but when you are a drug addict, you can always find drug addicts. And I said, sell this for me and give me the money, and you can have a portion of this free, and we can do drugs and we won't have to pay for it. Well, I gave him that half ounce, but he decided to use it all. And he didn't have the money. He wasn't going to give me the money, which created quite a problem because the person that I had gotten it from wanted his money. So this drug dealer, this head drug dealer, ends up calling my home. And he calls my home, and my husband picks up the phone, and there's no voice, nothing is spoken. Just the phone is hung up. This guy calls again. So the phone rings again, and this time I pick up the phone. And this man said, "I know where your children go to school." And that terrified me. What I didn't know is that my husband was on the other end of the phone. And he puts the phone down and he comes up to me and he says, "Suzanne, what have you done? And why are our children being threatened?" And so what he did was he picked up the phone. I gave him this guy's phone number. He picks up the phone and he makes a meeting. And he says, "You and I have to meet about this." But what was happening when my husband left to go on this meeting, was I was home, and I was in my back room, and I knew that this was it for me. There had to be something different that had to change. And I was in that back room, and I just got on my knees and I said, "God, if you're real, if you're really real, save me. I've made a mess of my family. I've made a mess of my household. I don't know what to do. I don't have a plan B anymore. I need you." And it was in those moments that I had an experience with God that will last me a lifetime. It's the kind of experience where you just know that God is reaching down from the heavens and he's taking your hand and he's pulling you up and he's pulling you out of that muck and that dysfunction. And I just knew that as he was pulling me up and putting my feet back on solid ground, that I was forgiven. That what I had been doing, I was forgiven for that. And I had seen a light that I had never experienced before. So when my husband came back from this meeting, he said, "Suzanne, the craziest thing happened. I had this discussion with this dealer, and he said, we're just going to chalk this up to a bad business deal. And we're going to let this go. My life since that day has been 100% different. From that moment on, from that moment that I saw the light and I walked into that light and I accepted Christ as my God, as my Savior that day, I know that I'm different. God brought me into his world and he saved me from that. So I didn't do drugs anymore and I didn't cuss anymore. And I just kept telling my husband, I've seen the light and my life has changed. And the only way I can show you that this is not just a fad is that I'm going to live it from now on. And I'm going to serve God for the rest of my days.